I have nothing left, she whispered, but I can still be yours, human. The crystalline structures of Vylon, once towering and luminescent, now lay shattered across the charred landscape. Nylira Kavarin, former High Commander of the Etherian Stellar Guard, picked her way through the debris, each step crunching on the remnants of her civilization. Her silver-blue skin, once gleaming with pride, was now dulled by ash and fatigue. The patterns of light that naturally pulsed beneath her skin flickered weakly. Like dying stars, she paused atop a ridge, watching as the human vessel descended through the atmosphere, its engines disrupting the eerie silence that had blanketed her world for weeks. The stellar conflict had ended not with triumph, but with devastation so complete that neither side could claim victory. The coalition forces had withdrawn, leaving humanitarian vessels in their wake, a gesture Nylira found more insulting than the missiles they'd launched. Come to gawk at what remains, she whispered to the wind, her violet eyes narrowing as the ship touched down in the valley below. Despite her contempt, desperation drove her forward. The few Etherians who had survived were scattered, hiding in underground caverns or wandering like she was. They needed supplies, medicine. Pride was a luxury she could no longer afford. The ship's ramp extended with a hydraulic hiss. Nylira straightened her spine, assuming the rigid posture that had once commanded respect from thousands. Her tattered uniform, still bearing the insignia of her former rank, hung loosely on her frame. A human male emerged first, tall for his species, with skin bronzed by distant suns and eyes the color of Earth's oceans. He carried no visible weapons, just a medical kit and a tablet. "I'm Dr. Elias Reed," he called out, stopping at a respectful distance. "We've brought supplies, medical assistance." He hesitated, studying her with an intensity that made Nylira uncomfortable. Not with fear, but with the sense that he was seeing beyond her exterior. "We're here to help, not to claim or conquer." "Your kind has an interesting definition of help," Nylira replied, her universal translator giving her words a crisp, cold edge. Elias nodded, accepting her bitterness without defense. "I understand your skepticism, but right now, there are people suffering who don't have the luxury of waiting for trust to be established." He set down his kit and pulled out a container of purified water, offering it to her without expectation. The gesture, so simple yet profound, caught her off guard. Water was scarce. The coalition bombardment had damaged Valon's atmospheric processors, leaving the air acrid and the water tainted. Nylira approached cautiously, accepting the container. "There are 17 survivors in the crystal caverns to the east," she said after drinking. "Children among them." Something shifted in Elias's expression. Relief, perhaps, that there were any survivors at all. "We can reach them before nightfall if we leave now." "We?" Nylira's laugh was hollow. "I'm not your guide, human." "No," Elias agreed, "you're not. You're someone who cares enough about her people to swallow her pride and approach an enemy ship. That makes you their best hope right now." His words struck a chord within her that resonated with painful truth. What was left of her honor now, if not in service to those who remained? As more humans emerged from the ship with supplies, Nylira made her decision. "I will take you to them. But understand this, I do not trust you. One wrong move, and whatever weapons your coalition left me with will find purpose again." Elias nodded, solemn. "Fair enough. My team follows my lead, and my only goal is to help." As they gathered supplies and prepared to move out, Nylira watched the human doctor organizing his team with quiet efficiency. There was something in his manner that reminded her of herself before the war. Purposeful, dedicated. "Your name," Elias said suddenly, looking up at her. "For our records?" She hesitated, the weight of her former title hanging in the air between them. "Nylira," she replied finally, omitting her rank and clan name. Those belonged to a past now buried beneath the ruins of Valon. Just Nylira. The journey to the caverns began in silence, but with each step, Nylira felt the strange sensation that she was walking not just toward the survivors of her world, but toward something else entirely, something she wasn't yet ready to name. 2 weeks had passed since the human relief team established their base camp near the Crystal Caverns. Prefabricated shelters now dotted the valley, each housing Etherian survivors who had emerged from hiding as word spread of the humans' intentions. The makeshift medical facility, little more than a reinforced tent with equipment salvaged from the ship, hummed with activity day and night. Nylira stood at the perimeter, watching as Elias worked tirelessly, moving from patient to patient with unwavering focus. The eternal twilight of Valon's damaged atmosphere cast everything in a perpetual purple haze, but somehow the doctor's presence seemed to bring clarity wherever he went. "You should rest," she said as he finally emerged, rubbing his eyes. "Even your physiology has limits." Elias smiled wearily. "Physician, heal thyself," an old earth saying. "We have similar wisdom," Nylira replied, surprising herself with the admission. "The brightest star burns fastest." They walked together toward the communal fire where both species gathered for meals, another barrier slowly dissolving. The nutritional requirements differed, but the ritual of sharing food transcended their biological differences. "Your people are resilient," Elias commented, accepting a bowl of synthesized protein from a crew member. 3 children were strong enough to play today. Nylira felt something tighten in her chest, an emotion she'd been suppressing since the war began. Hope. Dangerous and fragile, Etherians adapt. It is how we survived space travel before developing proper technology. She hesitated, then added softly, "But your assistance has accelerated the process." It was the closest she had come to expressing gratitude, and Elias seemed to understand the significance. He simply nodded, respecting the weight of her words. As they ate in comfortable silence, Nylira found herself studying his profile, the strange rounded ears, the curious lack of bioluminescence that her species possessed. Different, yet there was strength in his form that she had come to respect. Their peaceful moment was shattered by shouts from the eastern perimeter. Both leapt to their feet as Karev, a young Etherian scout, came running toward them. "Scavengers," he gasped, approaching from the ruins, armed. Elias immediately began organizing the evacuation of patients to the caves, while Nylira gathered the few Etherians who still had combat training. The scavengers, deserters from both sides of the conflict who preyed on the vulnerable, had been a constant threat since the war's end. "You should hide with the others," Nylira told Elias as she checked the charge on an old pulse weapon. "My patients can't be moved quickly," he replied firmly. "I'm staying." There was no time to argue. The scavengers, a mixed group of humans and aliens, appeared over the ridge, their makeshift armor cobbled together from battlefield debris. Nylira positioned her small defense force behind the solar collectors, using them as cover. "Hold until the evacuation is complete," she commanded, feeling the familiar mantle of leadership settle back onto her shoulders. The ensuing skirmish was brief but violent. Outnumbered, Nylira's defenders began to falter. A blast struck near her position, sending shards of crystal fragments into her shoulder. She staggered, weapon dropping from her grasp. In that moment, she saw a scavenger take aim at the medical tent. Without hesitation, she launched herself forward, unarmed, prepared to intercept the blast. But before she could reach the attacker, Elias emerged from nowhere, wielding a piece of equipment as a makeshift shield. The blast deflected, striking the ground between them. Their eyes met across the battlefield, mutual shock at each other's willingness to sacrifice. The distraction was enough for reinforcements from the ship to arrive, forcing the scavengers to retreat. As the chaos subsided, Nylira found herself in the medical tent, Elias carefully removing crystal fragments from her shoulder. "That was foolish," she said, wincing as he extracted a particularly deep shard. "Agreed," he replied, not looking up from his work. "Your move was tactically unsound. No weapon, no plan. I meant you," Nylira clarified, a hint of humor in her voice for the first time since they'd met. "Doctors aren't meant for frontline combat." His fingers paused, then continued their delicate work. "Neither are commanders meant to be human shields." "I'm not a commander anymore," she whispered. Elias finally looked up, meeting her gaze with an intensity that made the lights beneath her skin pulse more rapidly. "Titles can be taken away, Nylira. Who you are cannot." Something shifted between them in that moment, a recognition of shared values that transcended their differences. As he finished dressing her wound, his fingers lingered a moment longer than necessary on her skin, and neither of them moved to break the contact. That night, as the camp settled back into an uneasy peace, Nylira found herself unable to sleep. The memory of Elias standing between danger and his patients, unafraid, kept replaying in her mind. It challenged everything she had been taught about humans, that they were calculating, self-serving, weak. He was none of those things. And that realization terrified her more than any battle ever had. The seasonal rains came to Valon, turning the ash-covered ground to thick mud that clung to everything. A month had passed since the scavenger attack, and the settlement had grown. More survivors emerged daily from the wilderness, drawn by rumors of safety and rebuilding. Nilira stood in the doorway of the structure that now served as both communications hub and her quarters, watching the drops create ripples and puddles that reflected the few stars visible through the damaged atmosphere. The shoulder where Elias had removed the crystal shards had healed, leaving faint silver lines across her blue skin, scars that somehow felt like a bridge between her past and present. Behind her, voices crackled over the comm system, Elias coordinating with the orbital station for the next supply drop. His voice had become a constant in her life, steady and reassuring in a world where everything else remained uncertain. "The medical supplies will be enough for another month," he said, appearing beside her after ending the transmission. "And they're sending construction materials. Real ones, not just emergency shelters." "You speak as if you'll still be here to use them," Nilira observed, keeping her tone neutral despite the unexpected pang she felt at the thought of his departure. Elias leaned against the opposite side of the doorframe. Rain splattered between them, creating a shimmering curtain. "My assignment was extended. Apparently, I made a compelling case that the situation here requires long-term support." Something in his voice made her turn to look at him fully. "A compelling case? I may have emphasized certain facts," he admitted with a small smile. "The unique atmospheric conditions requiring specialized medical protocols, the complex cultural considerations in rebuilding efforts." "Lies?" Nilira raised an eyebrow, the gesture she had learned from him. "Strategic omissions of alternative possibilities," Elias corrected, then grew serious. "I couldn't leave yet. Not with so much unfinished." The weight of unspoken words hung between them, heavier than the rain-laden clouds above. Later that night, after the camp had gone quiet, Nilira made her way to the command tent where Elias often worked late. The ground transport they'd been using had malfunctioned, another victim of the corrosive atmosphere, and tomorrow's supply run to the outlying settlements would be impossible without repairs. She found him bent over star charts, plotting potential locations for atmospheric processors that might someday begin to heal Valon's broken skies. "You should be resting," she said, echoing his frequent admonishment to her. He looked up, shadows under his eyes but a warmth in them that made something flutter in her chest. "There's too much to do. Always." Nilira moved closer, looking down at his plans. Their arms brushed and neither moved away. "You plan for a future I'm not certain exists. That's what humans do," Elias said softly. "We hope irrationally. Is that why your people survived when mine nearly perished? This hope?" The question had been burning within her for weeks. Elias turned to face her, close enough now that she could feel the warmth radiating from his skin. "No. Survival is about adaptation, resilience, qualities your people have in abundance." He paused. "Hope is about what makes survival worthwhile." The dam within Nilira broke then, emotions she had held at bay for months flooding through her defenses. "And what is worthwhile about this?" Her gesture encompassed the ruins visible through the tent's transparent ceiling panel. "My world is dead. My rank, my purpose gone. My people scattered across the stars, those who survived." Her voice dropped to a whisper, the light patterns beneath her skin dimming with her words. "I have nothing left." Elias stepped closer, his hand raising hesitantly, before gently touching the side of her face, a gesture so intimate by Etherian standards that she nearly gasped. "You have yourself," he said firmly. "Everything I've seen you do here, organizing survivors, defending the camp, rebuilding structures, none of that came from your rank. It came from who you are." "And who am I now?" The question emerged broken, vulnerable. "Whoever you choose to be." His fingers traced the curve of her cheek, following the patterns of light that now pulsed rapidly beneath her skin, responding to his touch, to his proximity. "Your worth isn't in what you've lost, Nilira. It's in what you still are. The tension between them crystallized into something tangible. Years of cultural barriers and personal walls crumbling in an instant of perfect understanding. I have nothing left, she whispered again, her voice trembling as she stepped closer until they were nearly touching. No home, no name, no purpose. She looked up at him, violet eyes shimmering with emotion. But I can still be yours, human. Elias's expression shifted, pain and tenderness mingling as he understood the cultural misunderstanding in her words. In Etherian society, to belong was to have purpose. She was offering the only thing she believed she had left. Herself. No, he said gently, his hands now cradling her face. That's not how it works for us. For me. Nylara tried to step back, rejection cutting deeper than any wound, but he held her gently in place. I don't want to own you, Nylara. I want to stand beside you as equals. His voice dropped lower, more intimate. As partners, if you'll have me. The concept was foreign to her, raised in a culture where hierarchies defined all relationships. Yet something about it resonated with a truth she had always sensed but never named. Partners, she repeated, testing the word, feeling its shape and possibility. And then, guided by instinct rather than protocol for the first time in her life, Nylara closed the distance between them. Their lips met, tentative at first, then with growing certainty, a bridge between worlds built of understanding and something else, something that felt remarkably like hope. In the quiet of the command tent, as rain drummed above them and charts of stars surrounded them, two souls who had begun as enemies found something neither had been looking for, a future worth rebuilding for. Morning light filtered through the repaired atmospheric shield, casting prismatic patterns across the growing settlement. 3 months had passed since that rainy night, and the landscape of Vailon had begun to transform, not back to what it was, but into something new. Nylara stood on the observation platform of what had once been a simple relief camp, and was now evolving into a permanent outpost. Below, humans and Etherians worked side by side, erecting structures that blended both architectural styles. Children from both species played among the crystalline gardens that had been salvaged and replanted. Contemplating your kingdom? Elias's voice came from behind her, warm and familiar. His arms slipped around her waist, and she leaned back against him, their bodies fitting together with an ease that still amazed her. Not mine, she corrected, turning in his embrace to face him. Ours. All of ours. He smiled, pressing his forehead against hers in the Etherian gesture of affection she had taught him. The Coalition Council is impressed with the progress reports. They're discussing formal recognition of New Vailon as an independent settlement. With dual governance? Nylara asked, the political implications immediately clear to her strategic mind. That's the recommendation I submitted. His fingers traced the luminescent patterns along her arm, sending pleasant shivers through her body. The intimacy they had discovered still felt new, exhilarating, a territory neither had expected to explore. Their moment of peace was interrupted by Terran, a young Etherian who had become Elias's unofficial medical apprentice. Commander, Doctor. Reed, he corrected himself, still struggling with the human's preference for his professional title over rank. The communication array is operational. Earth Command is requesting contact. Nylara felt Elias tense slightly beside her. They had both known this moment would come, the inevitable pull of his original mission, his home, his former life. Thank you, Terran. I'll be there shortly, Elias responded, his tone neutral. When they were alone again, Nylara stepped back, creating space between them that felt suddenly necessary. Your superiors will want a full report. Yes. And they will expect your return. Elias sighed, running a hand through his hair, a human gesture of frustration she had come to recognize. My 6-month assignment is nearly complete. They'll want me back for debriefing at minimum. The unspoken question hung between them. What would happen to them? To this fragile thing they had built amid the ruins? That evening, after Elias had spent hours in communication with Earth Command, Nylyra found him in their quarters, staring at the small collection of personal items he had accumulated during his time on Valon. Gifts from grateful Etherians, specimens of regenerating crystal flora, and a ceremonial blade she had given him after the repulsion of another scavenger attack. "They've ordered you back," she said, not a question but a statement. "Yes." He turned to face her, his expression complex. "But they've also approved my proposal for establishing a permanent joint medical research facility here." Hope flickered within her, but caution tempered it. "For how long?" "Indefinitely." He moved toward her, taking her hands in his. "With me as chief medical officer, if I accept." Nylyra's luminescent patterns brightened with emotion she couldn't contain. "And will you?" Instead of answering directly, Elias guided her to sit beside him on the edge of their sleeping platform. "There's something you should know first, something I haven't told you." Alarm rippled through her, dimming her glow. "What is it?" "Before I was assigned to the relief mission, I was part of a research team studying Etherian physiology, specifically the possibility of human-Etherian biological compatibility." Nylyra stiffened. "For what purpose?" "Originally, military applications, I'm ashamed to say." His honesty was painful but familiar. It had been the foundation of their relationship from the beginning. "But my research took a different direction. I became interested in cross-species medical treatments, regenerative possibilities." "Why tell me this now?" "Because I want no secrets between us." His grip on her hands tightened. "And because my new assignment has two conditions. First, that I continue that research here, with voluntary participants." Nylyra processed this information, strategic mind analyzing implications. "And the second condition?" Elias's expression softened. "That I understand the personal risk I'm taking. Earth Command is concerned about the political implications of a high-ranking human officer becoming intimately involved with a former enemy commander." A laugh escaped her, unexpected, genuine. "They fear I'll corrupt you with Etherian ideology?" "They fear the unknown." His smile mirrored hers. "As all sentient beings do. And you?" "What do you fear, Elias Reed?" His answer was to pull her closer, his lips finding hers in a kiss that had become as essential as breathing. "Only losing this," he whispered against her mouth. "Only losing you." That night their coupling was different, more urgent, deeper, as if the acknowledgement of external pressures had crystallized the precious nature of what they shared. His hands mapped her body with reverent familiarity, tracing patterns that echoed the luminescence beneath her skin. Her fingers explored the contours of his form, still fascinating in their alien familiarity. When they finally lay spent in each other's arms, the bioluminescent patterns of her skin cast a gentle blue glow across them both, turning Elias's human features ethereal. "I never expected this," she murmured against his chest, "to find home in someone rather than somewhere." His arms tightened around her. Home isn't always a place, but as she drifted toward sleep, Nylyra couldn't quite silence the voice in her mind that whispered, "Not all homes endure." 1 year to the day after the human relief ship had first landed on Valon, a celebration marked the official recognition of New Valon as an independent settlement under joint governance. The once barren valley now hosted structures of crystal and steel, gardens of both earth and Etherian plants, and a population that had grown to nearly 1,000. Nylyra stood at the podium, her formal attire newly crafted in the traditional style of her people, but incorporating elements of human design shimmering in the artificial sunlight, projected by the atmospheric regulators. "From the ashes of conflict, we have built not just shelters but understanding," she addressed the assembled crowd. "Not just survival but prosperity, not just coexistence but harmony." Her gaze found Elias in the front row, his expression a mixture of pride and something deeper, more private. Beside him sat the delegates from Earth Command, their formal uniforms stark against the colorful garb of the Etherian Council members. Today marks not an ending, but a continuation. The story of New Valon is just beginning, written by all who choose to make this world their home. The applause that followed was genuine, energetic. As Nylyra stepped down, Elias rose to meet her, taking her hand in a gesture that no longer raised eyebrows among either species. The celebration continued into the evening, with food, music, and customs from both worlds blending into something unique. As the twin moons of Valon rose above the repaired atmospheric dome, Nylira and Elias slipped away from the festivities, making their way to the ridge where they had first met. Quite a different view from the one that greeted me when I arrived, Elias observed, looking down at the thriving settlement. Hard to believe it's only been a year. Time moves differently after war, Nylira replied, leaning against him. Everything is more immediate. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment before Elias reached into a pocket of his formal jacket. I have something for you, a human tradition adapted. He opened his hand to reveal a small object that caught the moonlight. A ring, but unlike any Earth design. It was crafted from salvaged Valon crystal, embedded with bioluminescent filaments that pulsed in rhythm with Nylira's own natural patterns. On Earth, rings symbolize union, partnership, he explained, suddenly seeming nervous in a way she hadn't seen since their early days. But they're also circular, no beginning, no end, like the path that brought us here. Nylira's breath caught as understanding dawned. Elias, I'm not asking you to follow Earth customs or abandon Etherian ones, he continued quickly. I'm asking if we can create something new together, something that honors both worlds but belongs to neither. He took a breath. The research outpost on Jupiter's moon has requested a joint human-Etherian medical team. 2 years minimum. You would leave New Valon? She asked, surprised. They had built so much here. We would expand what we started here, he corrected gently. Share it further, and then return bringing back what we've learned. He held up the ring. This isn't just about us, Nylira. It's about possibility. About proving that what we've built here isn't an anomaly. Nylira looked from the ring to his face, seeing in his eyes the same vision that had been growing in her heart. A future not limited by the boundaries of their separate pasts. In Etherian tradition, she said softly, joining is marked by the sharing of light. She held out her hand, the patterns beneath her skin brightening. My light has been yours since that night in the command tent. Elias slipped the ring onto her finger, where it immediately synchronized with her bioluminescence, creating a circuit of light between them. And my life has been yours since I found you in the ruins. As they sealed their commitment with a kiss, the settlement below continued its celebrations, unaware that above them, on a ridge that had once witnessed only destruction, 2 souls were charting a course toward distant stars. Together. When they finally broke apart, Nylira looked up at the stars visible through the atmospheric dome. Stars that had once seemed cold, distant witnesses to her people's suffering, but now held promise. From ashes to stardust, she whispered, an old Etherian saying that had taken on new meaning. Elias smiled, understanding. Not an ending. A continuation, Nylira agreed, her hand finding his as they turned to descend the ridge, back toward the lights of the settlement, their creation, their legacy, their beginning. Behind them, the twin moons cast their light over New Valon, illuminating a world being reborn not as it was, but as it could be, a testament to the truth that even in the darkest ruins something beautiful could grow, if only someone remained to nurture the first fragile spark. The end.